Let's go, girls. Come on.
From New York City to Los Angeles, Powered Up with Beck and Franklin is giving women of all ages permission to live the life they've always dreamed of. Why live in black and white when you can choose the brilliance of 3D and Technicolor? Each week, Sandra, Beck, and Linda Franklin and their high-powered guests will be here to cheer you on, to share their challenges, their successes, and what they've learned along the way. It's all about women supporting women. The stories and practical tips on sex, beauty, money, and so much more are designed to help you reconnect to the powerful woman you are. Fabulous knows no limits. Now it's time for you to expand your boundaries. Here are Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Linda Franklin and we've got another great show for you. We're bringing back our guest from last week, so you're going to want to go back, look it up on Powered Up Talk Radio. You can find it on iTunes. Our guest is Rhys Thomas, R-H-Y-S Thomas. He's the author of the book Discover Your Purpose. We had so much to talk about and he was so popular that we're bringing him back again today. So you're going to go look at that other episode because it's truly, truly wonderful. But before we bring Rhys on, Linda, today's topic that we're going to be chewing on is consciousness. Now, we hear this word all the time. I mean, you've got to raise your consciousness. You know, are you conscious of your thoughts? Are you present and conscious? It drives me bananas. I don't even know what that means anymore. I hear it so much.
Yeah, me too. And it is something that's bantied around a lot. And I was talking to my friend Fred this morning, and he believes, as I do, that we can create our bliss while here on this planet in human form and don't have to die to find it. You know, he believes it's all about our level of consciousness, and he used that word again. You know, and if we're happy now, that will carry to the next dimension and vice versa. And we always have the choice. And I think that's what we really have to get across in these shows, is that we always have a choice of how we want to feel, where we want to go, and what we want to accomplish in this lifetime. You know, I don't know about you, but that works for me. Choice is a good word.
Well, choice is a good word. Go ahead.
No, and I'm going to say, well, maybe this example makes consciousness easier to understand. And if you think of it as a lamp, now the brighter a lamp shines, the more you get to see, right? If it's really on dim, you don't get to see very much. But as we turn it up, as we amp up the brightness, we get to see more of whatever we're looking at. So if we're that lamp, and we turn our switch to the most bright it can be, you know, things become clearer to us. That clarity ramps up our awareness or consciousness. And we begin to see things and feel more, so we perceive additional aspects of ourselves and our surroundings. And I think then we can make better choices. The more we see, the brighter it is, then we can make choices that ordinarily we wouldn't have made if the lamp was on dim. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a big one for shedding the light on things and bright lights. I think, like, you know, shame and difficult behaviors, and, you know, they all live in darkness. They all, even our own behaviors, you know, it's like that whole analogy of, like, you know, what do you do when no one's watching? Well, if you shed light on things, you're conscious of what you're doing even when no one's watching.
That's right. So, you know, consciousness, I think as consciousness gets more and more for us, I mean, that's our spiritual awareness. I think that they're one and the same. So that we can look beyond what we think is real and understand we are more than what we perceive we are. You know, our spiritual self is much bigger, broader, brighter than the body itself. Did I lose you?
You did. You lost me on that last one. I was with you right up to the brink of the falls, and then you stopped and I fell over.
Oh, okay. Yeah, So I mean, everybody's got their own beliefs, but I do believe that, and we do not have to wait for something wonderful to happen to us here, or we can create happiness anytime we want by just, either changing our thoughts or changing what we think makes us happy to what really makes us happy, and go from there. I mean, this is just what I'm believing in more and more as each day passes. And because I am heading, down that path, stronger than ever, I feel better. I don't let all of the little things bug me because it's just not worth it.
Well, and so in this change, this change that you've gone through, this awareness or awakening, do you think that it helps you define your purpose in this life better? Like, is your purpose changed, or like how has that affected, what you're supposed to do here on this planet? Because to me, happy people a lot of times aren't really productive.
Well, it all depends what you think purpose is. Right now, my purpose is to stay in that good place. And whatever comes from that, I don't have to plan it out so much, because when I'm in that good place, whatever I decide to do, it's going to be okay. I'm not as critical and judgmental of what I'm doing or how much I'm accomplishing as I certainly was before. And and that is almost like taking a load off your chest. It's I don't know. I mean, I think our guest today may be able to shed more light on purpose, but I think our purpose here is to figure all of this out so that that we can really have that kind of heaven on earth experience.
I agree. I'm all for bringing Rhys on right now because I got nothing. I was following you, Linda, and I just, I'm a radio host. I'm not an expert on this. So let me bring Rhys on. This is Rhys Thomas, and he's our guest. And I'd love to bring you on, Rhys, right now, because we are talking about like how purpose relates to some of these things. And you wrote a book called Discover Your Purpose and how to use, this to unlock your hidden potential. So Rhys, I'm going to put that question right over to you.
Okay. Hey, Sandra. Hey, Linda. Glad to be here. I run a 3-year consciousness school. So we deal a lot with consciousness, and I think the tricky part about consciousness, and Linda actually said it in one of the things that she just said there, is that when you're conscious, you are the more conscious you become, the more you feel who you are, and the less you think who you are. Because the way we've actually linked up a level of consciousness with intelligence, and then intelligence is based on being able to integrate ideas and things like that. But the truth is that who we are, as Linda was saying, I think she was talking about what I call, there's an aspect to us, our energy body or our core self is really like unbendable, non-negotiable. It's like it's a contract. Our world, which we live through our chakras and all, is constantly moving and shifting, but there's a quality within us, a purpose within us, that when we tap into that, as Linda was saying, you're less interested in what you're doing, and you're much more interested in the person you bring to what you're doing. And when you're bringing someone to, she said, we don't wait till something amazing happens in our lives before we start enjoying our life. But I think when you're fully in your in sort of the acceptance of both your shadow and your light, and your good and your bad, and your the fact that we're just we're human beings that are both trying to survive on planet Earth, and we have this initial phases of consciousness where we realize that we're so much more than just a creature trying to survive on a planet. We have this divine connection to and sensitivity to higher knowledge, higher wisdom, and we've had some pretty spectacular human beings on the planet that have shown us the potential of the human mind and body and all. But I always say that that the difference between a expert and a master is that they think exactly opposite. So someone who's an expert, and a lot of people would call that person a master because they are, they've done whatever they've been doing for, they're a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist or a teacher, and they've been doing what they've been doing for 30 years, and they're an expert at it. And an expert learns all of the rules and then remembers them and masters the rules so that nothing is new to them in the world. But a master does, and so what an expert happens is something happens to an expert knows exactly how they're going to feel because their mind already links up to, well, when this happens I feel this way, or this happens I respond this way, and then of course they're feeling that way, and that feeling then proves what they're thinking. So if I say if I'm a person that believes that I really like Sandra, and Sandra walks in the room, I instantly say, oh, hey, I'm so happy to see Sandra. And then, of course, I'm feeling happy, and so then that reinforces the thought. But at that moment, a master would do something very different. When Sandra walked in the room, the master would feel the relationship he's actually in with her at that moment, and he might actually be doing something other than being happy to see her. And there may not be that automatic response. And so when you're responding automatically, you're an expert at your life. And when life is sort of a mystery that emerges through your feelings in the moment, and then you think, and then you use your mind, this incredible tool we have, to add flavor and color and depth to it, that's when you're living that mastery life. And so what Linda was saying about, I'm not as worried about, about the every detail ahead of time. It's more, I'm going to be called, what I say, called to your life, called into your life through your desire. And we're going to talk today about relationships. And it's a really important.
Rhys, I gotta cut you off. I gotta take you to commercial break.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for saying who isn't happy to see Sandra, because I'm always happy to see me. We are visiting here with Rhys Thomas of Discover Your Purpose. You're going to want to check out his book. His book is how to use his 5 life purpose profiles to unlock your hidden potential and to live the life you're meant to live. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about consciousness. We're going to talk about relationships and how we can turn our lamp up brighter to have the best possible life today, starting now. No waiting for heaven.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
This is Uncommon Sense for Leaders, a forum for exploring leadership from the intellect, the heart, and the spirit. Whether you're a leader now or aspire to be a leader in the future, you owe it to yourself to learn about the big ideas that have shaped the careers of compelling communicators, masters of influence, and highly effective leaders. Uncommon Sense for Leaders. Tune in to hear thought-provoking ideas on every aspect of leadership. You can expect dynamic discussions with special guests, quick tips you can apply immediately for better results, and the tools you need to take you from where you are to where you want to be as a leader. Are you ready to crack the code for achieving unprecedented results? Then join the host for Uncommon Sense for Leaders, Catherine Carlisi, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the All Business Radio Network.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors, all quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff and find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's some more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
Hey, ladies, this is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Linda Franklin, and this is Powered Up Talk Radio, and we are visiting this week with Rhys Thomas. Now, Rhys has been on our show before, and we had such an overwhelming response that we're giving him some more airtime. And, you know, Rhys, last week I could have talked to you all day. I'm so glad you're back. Before we went to break, you were talking a little bit about relationships in respect to what we were talking about, and I cut you off, so I'd love you to finish your thought.
Well, I know that we had talked before about how to begin, to sort of look at relationships and the concept, the profiles concept that we talked about last week, that there are 5 kinds of people. Really, there are really 5 different types of people. There are people that are very creative and artistic or scientific. There are people that are super feelers, really sensitive people with very soft hearts. They say wearing your heart on the sleeve. That's very very much who they are. And then there are what we call team players, where these people are very strong, caretaking, big smiles. They hug you a lot, and very warm people. And then there are achievers, who are the ones who are sort of the triathletes and the people that are, that they're very, very often they succeed at very high level jobs in both, in anything that you need to have an enormous amount of knowledge. They can attain an enormous amount of knowledge and then access that to manage large groups of people or be very successful in the way they organize and structure things. And then there are what we call leaders and charmers, and they there's a lot of those in the world. Then they have big energy people that often are very inspirational, high energy. They can be in any walk of life, from the super successful to the bum on the street. They have every possible way of expressing their life purpose. And yet whatever it is, it's going to be big and vibrant. And so you can imagine that if you have different types of people, they're going to have different needs and attractions and desires in relationship. And so I just wanted to sort of start with that conversation and put that out to the two of you. If you've seen sort of like certain types of people tend to get together, that sort of thing.
What category do you fall into, Rhys?
Well, I fall into the creative idealist category in my primary, and interestingly enough, creative idealists tend to be very much involved in their own work, in their art, in their work, and they'll actually they tend to come into relationship through what we call their secondary profile. So since my secondary profile is what we call the achiever, and a little bit of the leader, I will come into relationship more from the achiever place.
Okay, well, what inspired you, before we get on more with relationships, what inspired you to get into this work in the first place, and who were you before you started this work, and how has it changed you?
Who I was before, I've always been a creative idealist. I was born that way, and I think I have that. That's like a soul contract, for forevermore. It's my character. But who I was when I was really living through my life was, for about 35 years, I had decided that I was going to be a knowledgeable achiever, and I was going to be a professional athlete. I was a professional tennis player. I was I was black belt in martial arts. I had decided that I was going to start a corporation. I was running a large tennis facility and my own tennis camps, and I was absolutely convinced that I was going to fit in with the Mercedes and Bentley Club, and I just had this idea that all men had to be successful and driven like that, and it was culturally more than family, but that driving for that, and then realizing and feeling that there was something huge missing. I really felt like I was misunderstood by the people that I worked with, my employees, my the people on my board, the people and I wasn't that great a martial artist. I wasn't that great a tennis pro. I was a great teacher, but I've always felt like there were people that had more strength, more quickness, more intensity, and I always felt like, well, why don't I have that? And when I ended up having not only work relation problems, but also home relation problems, and then physical problems, which are the big three. If you're having problems in your career, problems in your relationship, and problems in your health, you probably have no idea who you are. And I was absolutely convinced I knew who I was, because I had listened to Wayne Dyer for years, and Tony Robbins, and I had done all sorts of work on quantum mechanics and studying all kinds of things, and I was absolutely convinced that I was knew totally who I was and what my purpose was, and I was going to be a successful businessman and a perfect father and husband and all that. But I wasn't any of those things because I couldn't pull it off. And when I went to energy medicine school in Connecticut about 15 years ago, I started like my late 30s. I said, wow, there's something really missing here. And I started working with an energy healer, and then found out that there are actually schools you can go to learn this level. And I thought I'd be going and getting more power. Like I'd be like, oh yeah, my chi from my martial arts would like get even more expanded. I think that's what I want. I want to be more powerful. And I went, and what I discovered was that I was completely wrong about who I was, and yet there were signs all the way through my life that I was always being pulled toward my true purpose. But I had so mentally convinced myself that that's not who I was, and who I was supposed to be was this other person. And who wants to be around someone who's just all out in their head and thinking all the time? You've got to be serious in life. And I sort of got this sensation within me and feeling that, wow, I've really been lying to everybody I know. I've been lying to my spouse. I was lying to my children. I was lying to the people at work, because when you present someone that you aren't to somebody, that's a lie. And when you present somebody you aren't to somebody, even if you don't know you're doing it, they will lie back. They won't feel fully comfortable around you, and they will pull back. And so I learned an enormous amount about sort of the value of being who I am. And then I went back and with all of my clients, and I was a public speaker, and I started working this in with my workshops, and started noticing that I didn't know there were two people I knew out of all the people that I knew at that time, including all my clients, and that actually I felt like knew who they were. Everybody else had a version of who they were, but it wasn't the whole thing. And I didn't understand why until I really understood this profile system, and how when we're children, we come into the world totally knowing who we are, and yet that is who we are is basically non-form. We're this child. We don't need to be named. We don't need to be a boy or a girl. It wouldn't even cross our mind. We're enjoying life. Every moment is just like this next amazing thing. You don't need to be named and know which colored dresses or pants you're going to wear. You don't need to know whether you're going to go to school or not. You just non-form. But to your parents, you really need to know those things. They are snapping their finger and, hey, look at me in the eye, mommy, your name is, Rhys. It's you're a Rhys, and you're going to be this way. And we learn that this person that sort of non-form isn't safe to be around because the parents need you to follow the rules, know how to operate in the family, know how to get along, behave a certain way. There's certain conditions within a family, and then the child has to make the impossible choice. The impossible choice is to be who you are or to be loved and get attention. And we all make the choice to be loved at some basic level. And when we do, we put aside some of the traits. Maybe there are angry traits. Maybe there are passionate traits. Maybe there are sensual traits. Some of these, somehow there's a trait. There's parts of us that we put aside. And there may be a number of them as we go through our childhood. And later on in life, when we put those aside, those are sort of, we make vows against that. Later on in life, what's left is all we have to work with. And we try to make this idealized person, this idealized self, into a person. And it actually is this idea of the child of what an adult is. And so we try to become that. And it isn't until we become an adult and realize that we're only half a person that we hit the midlife crisis. And then people come and see me and they want to find out who the rest of them are and how they can bring that into their relationships, into their careers, and into their health.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And you go through all of these achievements in your whole career and things that you did, things that everybody does, and then you realize, hey, I wasn't even happy doing this. I thought I thought everything was terrific, and then one day it kind of just sort of socks you in the head and said, oh my God, there's got to be more because this isn't what it's cracked up to be.
Right.
Even though you were very successful, and the outside world looking in said, "Oh boy, she's got it made," or "He's got it made in the shade," and you're saying inside, "Oh no, I don't. I got to make some changes here." If you're smart.
Yeah, because the ego is externally motivated, and the mind. Look, the cerebral cortex is really a protective mechanism. It isn't something that tries to find your purpose. It just tries to survive. And when it's got some organizational skills, it does better than survive. It makes a lot of money, but it doesn't mean that making a lot of money is necessarily an indication that you're living your purpose. It's just
Rhys, I'm going to cut you off. Yeah. I'm going to take us to commercial break. We are visiting today with Rhys Thomas, and he's got a great book out. You want to check it out, Discover Your Purpose. This is Sandra Beck from Powered Up Talk Radio, along with my lovely co-host in New York, Linda Franklin. For those of you that missed the first half of today's show, you're going to want to check us out on iTunes. You can go to powereduptalkradio.com and download the show from there. You can also go to our host station, Global Broadcasting Networks, found on TogiNet, TogiNet.com. You're not going to want to miss what more Rhys has to say with Discovering Your Purpose after the break.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
This is for all you girls about 42. Tossing pennies into the fountain of youth.
Is there more living for you to do? Yes. Start living inspired. Be here for Living Inspired with Tricia Goyer, Thursday afternoons at 4, 3 p.m. Central on TogiNet.com. Tricia will dig deep into topics that matter most to women, inspiring women to make a change in their own lives and to make a difference in the world, and maybe even deep within their own hearts. Tricia is a wife, mom, speaker, family expert, and author of 24 books. For more information on Tricia and Living Inspired, go to her website, TriciaGoyer.com. That's TriciaGoyer.com. Tricia's vision is to be the voice of hope and possibility for women of all ages. Her intention is to serve ordinary women by encouraging extraordinary things with God's help. Tricia expresses real life, real hope for real women. Is there more living for you to do? Yes. Start living inspired. Living Inspired with Tricia Goyer. Thursday afternoons at 4, 3 p.m. Central on TogiNet.com.
Welcome to Geraldine Tegelove Live, the show that shares with you the secrets of redefining, reinventing, and rebuilding your life. Having pulled herself from the rubble of financial ruin and having gone on to create a highly successful career, Geraldine has become an expert in the art of transformation. She believes that it doesn't matter where you are right now, how overwhelmed you feel, or how impossible the task of turning your life around may seem. You can do it. Stay tuned as metaphysician, international best-selling author, and intuitive Geraldine Tegelov gives you the inner understanding and the outer practical how-to to create your amazing life. Gain a fresh perspective on how to redefine, reinvent, and rebuild your life. Join Geraldine Tegelov live every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the TogiNet Radio Network.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's some more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
This is for all you.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Linda Franklin, and we are visiting today with energy medicine expert Rhys Thomas. And as promised, we are going to talk today about dating. When we put these different profiles together, how does that work? And, Rhys, as a divorced single mother of two, I've dated a few stumps in my day, and I'm excited for you to give me some input on, what to look for, how do we match up, and I'm going to throw the ball right in your court and say, okay, Rhys, you explained who you are. Well, you know who I am. So are we compatible? Are we not compatible? Where do I go with my profile?
Well, the good news is that anybody out of defense can get along with anybody. Of course, if you're just loving life, any person can come into your life, and you can totally find them enjoyable and be in love because you're in love with life by itself, and so that person comes in, and you're able to really share that love. But since we spend a lot of our time in what we call defense, where we're sort of in survival and all, there are combinations that get along really well, and you have what's called the charismatic leader not archetype, but profile, and with that, you have this high energy, and you have a desire. Internal desire to be in charge, and so you and I both have quite a bit of that, and if we both agreed that one of us at a time would play the helper to the other one, we would have a fantastic relationship. The problem is that oftentimes people are very unconscious to their profile, to their quality, and they'll actually play. So, for instance, socially, if you and I were to start dating, I would have to play the role of the strong, man and knight, and take you out and be the chivalrous one, and you would, in society-wise, play the femme fatale, or the one that's loves to be swept off your feet and romanced, and there is a dynamic that would go on in that relationship that would be a lot of fun for a little while we played the game, but the established rule in relationship would be that you would want to, if you were brought up in, like I was in a society and culture where the men are supposed to be the strong ones. That means that in some way you want to, make sure that I'm still a strong man, and you support me in that, and yet your personality needs to be the one that gets served. And so it would end up being, if we were conscious about it, I would play your team player some of the time, and you would play my team player some of the time, but neither one of us would really know that we're subservient ever to the other person. It would be a power relationship. Now, I was saying earlier that I am a creative idealist, and as my primary quality. And so I would have to come into relationship with you from my secondary, those more powerful ones. But often I am a person. A creative idealist is somebody that is often married to their work and has a lot of the writing and the school and all of these things. These creative endeavors that I do are things that can distract a creative idealist from their relationships. And so one of the things that you might find in relationship with me is that you would have to keep dragging me back from being lost in my thoughts. And depending upon how much patience you have, that could be great. But sometimes it could be just sort of like, hey, you're not paying attention to me, or you're
I
not.
was just going to say, Rhys, I could see us at the dinner table going, pay attention to me,
Right,
focus on
exactly.
me, it's my turn now.
This is about me. And so I would know, because I know the profiles, if we were in a relationship, I would know that you ultimately, even though you would be very gracious and make me feel like a real strong man, or your guy, I would know that you love to be worshipped. And as a charismatic leader, not that all women don't love to be worshipped, they all do, but charismatic leaders, if you don't feel like you are, the sun rises and sets on you by your partner, it's going to be a hard relationship. And there are plenty of people out there that carry that strong team player quality. So charismatic leaders, who are the ones who are supposed to lead the world, and they're equally divided up between men and women, need to partner with people who have a strong team playing quality, which means their partner needs to be more sacrificing than they are in general. And yet what ends up so what happens in those relationships often is that when a charismatic leader doesn't know that they're a charismatic leader, they sort of unconsciously value that charismatic leader, especially for women. There's so many women that are charismatic leaders, and they weren't allowed to be bossy or controlling or powerful like men are just expected to be. And so they will often choose these macho, sensual, charming men that are charismatic leaders. Because they sweep them off their feet and they do all this wonderful stuff. But then after a while, they want that person to serve them, and the charismatic leader probably won't. They'll expect you to continue to be the helper. And then that doesn't work at all for you, because then you go into battle with them, and over time you have to, because they don't ultimately lead the way you would lead. So it ends up being a battle. So a conscious couple would allow both, and I do know couples that both come into the relationship from charismatic leader that do fantastic, but they're very aware that there are times when they serve their partner and the partner serves them. The matches made in heaven are with the charismatic leaders, with a strong, dynamic personalities, with a person that's more focused on others, a team player, a person that really wants to support them in being amazing. And so you having a guy in your life that totally supports you in being amazing, that's really what will make it work for you. And then you would be the person that would make that supportive type of personality, that caretaking type personality, feel like what they're doing, it has enormous value. And so in your core, you both feed each other's greatness, rather than in the defense. The charismatic leader would judge the person who just wants to serve others as weak, and the person who would judge the charismatic leader as narcissistic, and that goes the other way. So, and then the other couple combination are the knowledgeable achievers, who are very driven and focused in their lives, and they actually partner. In the ideal match, the soulmate match, and these are soulmate matches. Energetically, they match with what are called the emotional intelligence specialists. So the more sort of stiff and strong and focused and together and sort of not emotionless, but definitely contained that a person is, makes them a great achiever. The more they desire the softness and the gentleness of what we call the emotional intelligence specialists, which are the people that are just all heart. And when they are with that person that's all heart, it melts them. It melts their sort of like the knowledgeable achiever can be sort of like the Tin Man, and the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz is always trying to find their heart. And it's the emotional intelligence specialist that reminds them that not only are they great people and are wonderful people, but they also need to take care of themselves and not push themselves so hard. And of course, the knowledgeable achiever, which is very good around structure, gives this softer sort of liquidy kind of person, the softer emotional person, a little bit more containment and allowing them to see that the way they love and the way they support people in one-on-one relationships is really of enormous value in the world and in their relationship, and they love that. They love how much they love. And of course, if they are in what we call defense, where the knowledgeable achiever is in their rigid rule keeping and criticism is the thing that closes the heart the fastest. And so, if they're critical of their emotional partner being too soft or crying too often, why are you crying at that commercial? What's the matter with you? Why? Geez, just can't you just talk to me, about things without crying? And they'll say those sort of things, and then of course the emotional person will say, "Oh, you're heartless," and they'll see them as heartless and cold. And so these soulmate matches actually draw each other to awaken within you the part of you that you need the most. But oftentimes divorces come from people marry the right person, but then they try to make the person who they are rather than learn to be a broader, experience themselves as more like the other person, having a piece of that in them and valuing the other person. So one of the big things about the profiles is when you learn to value someone else, and these profiles teach you to really value the core quality in people, you realize that you have some of that in you too, and even the people that are very different than you have an enormous amount to teach you, and especially your opposites. So the knowledgeable achiever and the emotional intelligence specialist are soulmates, and the charismatic leader and the teammate and the team player are soulmates, and they often the first marriage is that combination, but because nobody's taught how to actually support that, they end up looking at their partner like an alien after about 6, 8, 10 years, and then the marriage falls apart.
Rhys, I'm going to take us to commercial break, but that is really fascinating. I mean, you described a lot of experiences that I've had, and, Linda, I'm sure you've seen them as well. And I think it's so important that we learn how to caretake each other and nurture each other for what we need. And it's really hard for people to articulate, like for me, I know what I don't want and I don't need, but it's really hard for me to identify what I do need. And that's one of the things that your book really helped me to understand. Our guest today is Rhys Thomas. His book is put out by Penguin Random House. You can find it anywhere. The book is Discover Your Purpose, How to Use the 5 Life Purpose Profiles to Unlock Your Hidden Potential and Live the Life You Are Meant to Live. It's a great book for parents. It's a great book for singles. It's a great book for married people because you really start to look at the world in a different way. We come back from the break. We're going to talk more about relationships and who we are and how we can be the best we can be.
Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
Congratulations on being the proud owner of an adorable, soft, cuddly, sweet-smelling, smiling, cooing, hungry, tired, gassy, screaming little bundle of joy. So now what? Where's the owner's manual for this thing? Where are my instructions? Right here. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet.com. Infant care specialist Blythe Lipman has worked with babies for over 20 years and works extensively with new parents, providing workshops, in-home visits, tips, and daily phone calls to ease those frazzled nerves. With Baby and Toddler Instructions, you can get the advice you need on how to survive and enjoy your baby's first year. For more information on Blythe and how she can help you, go to babyinstructions.com. From 32 ways to stop a baby from crying to 14 ways to get a baby to eat and so much more. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet.com.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors, all quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff and find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
Hey, ladies, this is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Linda Franklin, and this is Powered Up Talk Radio. And we are visiting today with Rhys Thomas. And before we ended the last segment, guys and gals, we were talking about soulmates. Rhys, you made a comment about soulmates, and I'm stumped. I don't even like the word soulmate. It to me, it's like cold pizza. It doesn't really do anything for me. But Linda, you have an interesting opinion on soulmates.
Yeah, I do. I've always felt that soulmates were your opposites, not your like person. As so many people say, oh, I want to find my soulmate. I need that person who completes me. Well, that's just ridiculous anyway. We only complete ourselves. But I find somebody that's the opposite of you in a lot of ways is your soulmate, because they can push your buttons, and when you have to look in the mirror and say, what's going on with me, because this other person is able to get to me. So what is that thing in me that he's touching a nerve on? And hopefully the more you see that, the more you can grow from it. So that, I don't like the term either. I love the term. I love soul, but soulmate, I'm not so sure in a love relationship.
Yeah, can I jump in on that one?
Oh yeah,
sure.
Please.
Okay, yeah. Since everybody who comes to you in your life is ultimately being called to you, pulled to you, everybody's a soulmate at some level, because everybody who comes into your life changes you. And that's truly my definition of soulmate is the person who changes you the most is probably the most important soulmate for you. And for many people, the person who wounded you the most was the one that actually made you change the most and made you fight for who you are the most. But when we're talking about partner soulmates, we're talking about a person who truly is different than you are, doesn't have the same qualities that you have, but truly sees your greatness. And that's one of the elements of learning the profile system, is that you get to see the greatness in people. And your partner isn't going to sit back and sort of let you, if they're a soulmate partner, they're not going to sit back and let you sort of squander this amazing greatness that you are. They will encourage you. They will cajole you. They'll push you. They'll say, I'm not even talking to you until you are willing to be this amazing person that I know you are. And they will lead you into and guide you into being this fantastic person that you are. And a soulmate, just like a soul guide or your soul itself, always holds the highest opinion of you and won't take anything less. When you come in from defense, when you're all mad and you're all all worked up and avoiding or saying, I'm never going to do this or whatever it is, they look through that and are willing to see the core quality within you. And so when I talk about soulmates in the book and in this, and I think that if we have so many matching systems, dating systems out there, and they're all behavioral based, just like the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or those sort of things. If they got a hold of this energetic dating, it would change everything in how they choose people for people, because energetically we do need our opposite and someone who's holding that opposite in a very healthy way. to help us. So the knowledgeable achiever really needs to feel their heart, and the person that has a huge heart and is very gentle and soft and often lost in the world needs some structure to have a place for that wonderful heart, so they can share it with more people. And then the charismatic leader, who tends to be very isolated and on their own and can be very narcissistic, matches with someone who holds this that they're really selfless. They match with a selfless person who gives and gives, and when they fall in love with each other and fall in love with that quality in the other person, they realize that that's the quality within them that will make them great. It tempers their strength. So the two stronger qualities, the knowledgeable achiever and the charismatic leader, need to be tempered by the softer qualities of compassion and love. And then, of course, yeah.
No, go ahead. Just finish up, and then I want to sort of give an example of that relationship and if that falls into that.
Sure. Because I want to address those that are the highly creative people. They need to be in any relationship to sort of ground their brilliance. They bring their brilliance into relationship, but they have to do it through a secondary profile, because the creative idealist energetically is actually connected more to spirit and heaven and the ideas than they are to their body and with people. And so they'll tend not to have relationships when they find their mission in life. But like in Einstein, his wife used to put a sticker on him every morning, a little stick-on note, or whatever they had back then, and it said, "Hi, my name is Albert. At 5:30, send me home," to Betty or whatever her name was, and they'll remind them that they need to be in relationship to bring their brilliance into the world, and so they need the relationships, but they come into relationship through what we call one of their secondary qualities, one of the four: the knowledgeable achiever, the charismatic leader, the team player, or the emotional intelligence specialist. Those are all the relationship people in the world.
Just a quick question. A lot of role reversal these days where the wife is a higher earner and she's going out to work, and we have the stay-at-home dad that's taking care of the kids. And, genetically, it's always the man that was, he brought home the bacon and the woman, fried it up in the pan. So a lot of relationships saying that's okay, but is it really okay for both, that the woman feels, oh my God, why isn't he pulling his weight, and the man saying, oh, I'm giving up so much for her and the family? How does that work?
Well, when you know what your profile is, and really understand that when the woman has, and we have a lot of this, in the program in the school that I run, we have women that are very strong, and they're the breadwinners, and the husband's at home with the children, and the problem is that societally they both feel horribly guilty, but if they knew their profile, they would be thrilled that they get to do what they're born to do. And usually the husband is either an emotional intelligence specialist or a team player, and he loves being home with the kids and wasn't going to make a lot of money out there anyway, because he just doesn't have chakras, doesn't have the energy for that. And the wife is this strong, driven person who loves the corporate world, who loves to create their business and be out there, and that's what feeds them. And then when they both come together around the children, they both are people who are healthy and are bringing their happiness to the relationship. The problem is that without knowing who you are, it's very rare that women don't over push themselves in the corporate world when they have that, and then feel like they have missed out on being a mother or having that time with the children. And then the husband often feels and will be looked at as like, oh, you're a house husband, what's the matter with you? Why aren't you out there in the world? You're what are you, a freeloader? And so there's this deeper sort of societal thing that really doesn't apply at all to anybody's life purpose, but it's just an accepted norm.
Linda, what do I agree with him, because
I think Rhys don't you think, Rhys, you talked about you have another commitment, so we're going to let you go because I don't want you to be late for the next one.
That's totally great, and I love talking with you about this. I would be happy to do a whole show on how to find your soulmate, and then the pitfalls, and how to undo some of the silly things that we do because of our societal conditioning.
Terrific. Thank you so much for being with us today. I think you gave us a lot to think about, that's for sure.
All right, Sandra and Linda, great talking with you.
Thanks,
All right.
Rhys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, Linda, I swear, I read his book. It was one book that I got, in a box of other books that came from a publishing house. And I read his book cover to cover. I stayed up till like 2:00 in the morning. I couldn't put it down because I could see Max and my other son, Zach, clearly in these profiles. I could see myself. I could see places where I could improve. It really was amazing.
And I didn't read the book, but just hearing him talk today, I could see it as well. Just listening to him. Yeah, and I what I think that we have to do is just learn to be more is tolerant a good word? I don't know. More understanding of people who aren't exactly like us, because they have stuff to teach us.
Well, that's it. It's like you can't know what you don't know, and we can only see the world through our own experiences. And when I read about the teamwork person, I was like, it made so much sense to me, because even when I was a little girl, my dad would laugh and he goes, "That's right, everybody's got to pay attention to Sam." And my younger brother would always be like, "Pay attention to me, pay attention to me. That's all you say, pay attention to me." They're right. It's something that I need and something that helps me be my best. But I realize now, like reading these things, that there's a time and place for everything. And I got greater understanding about what I need and also what I can give to other people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think there's any good or bad or right or wrong. I think it's just finding the right connection.
Well, yeah, and how to get the best out of people. Like, I looked at this book and thought, This is a must read for anybody who's involved with people, whether you're a manager, whether you're
if you're alive, right?
Yeah, but it gives you a lot of insight into who you are and who other people are. And when you give people what they need and it doesn't compromise yourself, everybody wins.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, agreed. So, it's a very interesting way to look, just to take a look at people that you may not have looked at them before, even your own mate, because they've got qualities that we may think are not good for us, but in retrospect, they really are.
They really are. Well, we're talking about Rhys Thomas. He wrote a book called Discover Your Purpose, How to Use the 5 Life Purpose Profiles to Unlock Your Hidden Potential and Live the Life You Were Meant to Live. Linda, I think, it's one of those things that I'm buying for Christmas presents. I mean, it's something that anybody dating, it was so fascinating to me. And I loved reading about myself. And I know you will too. And when we come back next week, we've got a whole bunch of new great guests that are going to be on, and we're going to continue our series on spiritual development and developing ourselves to be the best we can be. For Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin, this is Powered Up Talk Radio. We'll talk to you next week.
We're so glad you joined us for Powered Up with Beck and Franklin. Sandra Beck, Los Angeles-based single mother and technology company owner, knows what it's like to be fit, funny, and fantastic in your 40s. Linda Franklin, a New Yorker with a successful marriage and